So this has over 1 million views on YouTube. And what does Grasshopper do? Doesn't matter. Like they create tools for entrepreneurs. They're a software company, and one of the things they do is virtual phone systems. You wouldn't be able to tell that from this. But the thing is that their piece of content is actually incredibly in line because they're all about entrepreneurs, and actually what they do is secondary. So this piece of content is fun, and it got lots of people to recognize their brand. And even if just by curiosity you sort of followed it back and found out what this company was all about, this was a great content placement and drove a lot of traffic. So this is, that's kind of it. And yeah, I don't know the best way to wrap it up, but is there any questions? Yeah.
Do you think that they could have been more effective if they, do you think that they could be even more effective if somehow, without pushing themselves, they kind of like let the consumer know what they do? Because I still don't know what they do. I wouldn't even realize that that was any sort of that had any sort of relation to an actual company trying to make money.
Yeah, but I'd go to that link that says grasshopper.com right beneath and try and figure out what they do. That would be the first thing I would do.
If he was an entrepreneur, then he would be attracted to it.
Because if I see this video, I go, oh, this seems cool. What do they do? I'm going to click on grasshopper.com right there and figure out what they do.
Just to see what happens. So what would you do?
I click on like this is Grasshopper, and it would bring me probably right to their website, and I would then find out what they do, and probably spend an hour looking at what they do.
But what about the other giant percentage of people that aren't that active who may not click that little tiny link at the bottom of the screen?
Well, see, there's a couple things there. So one, there's a sort of idea now called, they call it like the purple cow. Seth Godin sort of like coined this term. You have to sort of use non-traditional ways to get people's attention. Just like you're talking about the outbound marketing sort of being tuned out. Like you have to sort of find a way to like put your brand in front of people. Because you're right, like there isn't a great call to action to this. Like people don't really know what they do exactly. But in their minds, like the function of their business, the software that they sell, the line of products that they have, doesn't matter. They are a company there to serve entrepreneurs. And their value that they wanted is entrepreneurial. And that's what they wanted to show. They wanted to show something fun. They totally piggybacked on Jay-Z's popular song. And they found a couple of really talented filmmakers to do it. And it's like being creative and working with a startup and working with a company. They put together something that was like really fun, and it got a lot of attention. And that's the thing, though, you're right, is because, like, well, what did this content do? Like, what was our, and this is where you really, although, like, you don't always want to stick to it, it's like, what was the ROI? You know, how did we track, how many people clicked on that link and visited our site? Well, how many of those entrepreneurs now use our service? Because that's huge. But, I mean, like, the other thing is going to be, like, what did it cost you to make this video? It probably cost you a little bit to hire the media production guys. But in all, it's like it didn't cost you anything with YouTube. It's not going to cost you anything on Facebook, Twitter. The cost is in the channel ownership. You know, whoever's monitoring this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to get like bogged down with like the click-through rate of like that URL at the bottom, I mean, what's going to be your click-through rate on like a standard PPC ad, like on the side of Google, that doesn't even get close to 1 million impressions, let alone clicks. So even if it was the small percentage of the people that are going to go and click and spend an hour on the website, it's going to be a much higher click-through rate than a PPC ad that you probably, campaign that you probably created cost way more than it cost to put that video up.
Yeah. And the idea here is that it
Wait. That's a very interesting thought. The whole that. I want you to defend that in a blog. I want that to be a blog post of yours.
Log it out.
I'm interested in that.
It is very interesting. I want to say two things, not to steal the thunder, but part of it goes back to this idea I talked about, like, unmarketing. It's like because you're absolutely right, there's lots of numbers you can look at, but like, again, business is built on building relationships. And like, how do you measure what that conversation cost? You know, you don't know, like, something very easy to this could have brought you X amount of customers, but now you're engaged with them, like you have a relationship with them. The same thing sort of comes with this idea of sharing. Like YouTube is an incredibly easy, that's what made it like completely innovative and changed everything for video online. It's so easy for people to pass these things around. You can go on Facebook and just click a little link and be like, share like, tweet, whatever, and just blast it out. And who knows, like, through that video, through that sharing, you may be creating leads that you didn't even know exist, and you're sort of unveiling it as you go. I guess the last thing that I would leave you with, and I sort of touched on it before, is what's awesome about like learning a lot of this marketing stuff in business school and applying this to social media is this is no longer considered a fad. Like, these channels are here to stay. And the thing is that people who are doing marketing are going to be looking for people who are not like anointed experts, but like who understand how to apply fundamental marketing techniques like STP and start to use these channels. So it's not just about like how many friends you have on Facebook. It's about like, how do you really use this to like help the business, and how do you put it in line with our core business strategy. And this is out of necessity. Jobs are starting to pop up from this. Like, you see more and more companies are being like, we need a social media guy. We gotta get on Tweezer. Like, we need to get there. But they don't really understand, like, well, what is that? It's like you go on Twitter and just like, why am I doing crickets? And it's like, well, it didn't work. Social media doesn't work. And that same thing. It's like building relationships takes time, and just like with anything. And like, this is where this all sort of culminates. Where like people who are social media coordinators or digital marketing, managers, this is sort of what they are. They're relationship managers too. Yes?
Do you think some of the bigger companies are more hesitant to go into social media because it can't be quantified? Like,
Yes.
and for other reasons?
Yes, I think that the technology definitely scares a lot of companies. I think for them, it's totally about a trust issue, because I think that it's sort of the bureaucracy of the corporation is sort of like, we have a message, and like, we don't want to get slammed out there. So like, how do we know that like what you're tweeting out there is going to be, like, it makes them very nervous, sort of put themselves out there. Because there is so much reaction. There's this book out, it's called Here Comes Everybody. And it totally makes a good point where it's like, when you put yourself on the internet, everybody sees it. Even people you don't want to see it. And it's like, this is sort of the game that you now have to play too, where it's like, they call them trolls. It's like people who just sort of show up in forums and are like, your mother, and then just run away. Like, they're doing nothing of value, but they're being disruptive. And like, those people exist on the streets when you're walking around, and they're online too. And I think it makes a lot of companies nervous to be like, this could spiral out of control if we don't get it. So I think, to answer your question. Cool.
Any questions about his strategy, personal marketing strategy, the marketing of Sean Zinsmeister?
I'll read that question as being like, what's really awesome about social media is we live in an age where this is the rise of the personal brand. And that everything that you're doing in your content, and I know I'm probably going to get like slayed for this in business school, but like the days of the traditional resume are soon coming to an end. And like, these are the new ways that people's personalities are sort of made. You should always have a resume. You should always, it's always important to keep that, because you're always going to need that, sort of, make that final push. But, somebody who wants to find out something about me, I have my blog, I have my LinkedIn, I have my Twitter. I'm out there. Do a Google search for Sean Zinsmeister. You can see everything that I've ever done. And it's this idea where it's just like, you're building a billboard, and the billboard should say like, hi mom, because if you're not okay with like your mom seeing it, or like people you work with, don't put it on Facebook, because like, this is kind of the way. And what I sort of do, I'm also a writer for BostonInnovation.com. It's one of the big tech publications in the Boston area. We cover different startup companies and social media, and that's one of the ways that I sort of build my personal brand. Through that blog, I get viewers, and all that stuff is linked to me. So there's a lot of inbound links. They can follow me on Twitter. They can go to my personal blog, which is mbabookclub.com. There's nothing more than I just write my thoughts about different types of business books that I've read, and just share those thoughts with it. And I'm just like, personally, I don't care if 5 people read it, I don't care if 2 people read it, or 10 people. If I have anybody's read this, great. But still, it's all out there, and I feel like through my personal brand, it's like people will know. An HR department can just be like, Sean Zinsmeister, bang. Got it.
I'm just like going back to what I was talking is kind of like, they tell us in marketing classes that awareness is what you do if you're already an established brand and people already know what you do, who you are, what you stand for, and, or interest actually, I'm sorry, interest is what you do if people already understand your company. So like Gucci or Louis Vuitton will just post an ad that just is a pretty picture, and that's all it is. It's like something cool looking, and you already know it's advertising. But do you think that companies, like for instance, I'm trying to think of a company that's not really obscure ad campaign. Levi's, they had that Go Forth campaign. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so, yeah.
Where like they just kind of like flash a little Levi's logo at the end, but like it wasn't. It didn't say. I don't know. This is kind of also another brand.
Like Old Spice.
But I'm thinking of horrible examples. But just commercials or advertisements that aren't as awareness building, that people don't understand what it actually is. Do you think people will seek that more? And do you think that it's not as necessary to create awareness, it's more necessary to build interest now?
Well, okay, it's a loaded question, but it's a really good one. The first answer I would say, it depends on what your core business strategy is. I mean, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because there are a lot of like startup companies who just want to get their brand out there, and that's what they want to accomplish. And so their metrics of success and those success factors that they're trying to achieve are going to be met because they're like, listen, we had CPM, we had all these impressions, like we did it, we got our brand out there, we put it in front of people, that's great. Maybe your strategy is lead conversion or lead nurturing. You're going to use a totally different strategy for that, and that's going to play into your content, which I think sort of answers your question. I think something that you sort of brought up that's interesting is that a lot of companies are using social media sites like Facebook and stuff like that as redundant repositories. Meaning like, okay, so Coke has like X amount of fans on their Facebook page. Like, what does that mean? It's just a number. Are these people who just like Coke now? Okay, so like now you created an audience where you can engage them with content, that's great. But like, is that really spreading the word? Because I think again, companies are doing that just because like we gotta be on Twitter and Facebook. But they don't do anything, they don't interact, they don't engage. They're just billboards. And they sort of sit there. Does that answer your question? Other stuff?
Any other questions? You can definitely find him, as it says, on the media and zap and poke him, whatever else you want to do.